of the most terrifying stories for you. In one, a man recorded what he believes was Bigfoot, burying something in the ground. According to him and the footage, what he captured was genuinely disturbing. When he and his friends went back to see what it was burying, what they found was beyond terrifying. And in the second story, from 2003, a group of friends went exploring an abandoned building on Halloween night. What they found inside they believe was Bigfoot. They even managed to capture a few chilling images. I won't say if these are real or not, but honestly, the evidence is scary enough to make you think twice about walking into the woods alone. A like and subscribe would mean a lot, and share this video with anyone who still doesn't believe in Bigfoot. So, let's begin. I've told this story a few times over the years, but never the whole thing. Not the parts that still wake me up. Not the parts that don't make sense when I say them out loud. It was Halloween night 2003. I was 18, thought I was brave, and thought the world worked in straight lines. You go somewhere, you see something, it makes sense. But that night, in the Smokies, we crossed into something that doesn't fit in straight lines. I grew up in Sevier County, Tennessee. Back then I worked weekends at a grocery store, went to high school during the week, and spent most nights in the same gas station parking lot with my friends, Tyler, Josh, and Mia. We'd sit on the hood of someone's car, talk about leaving town, talk about dumb plans. Tyler had his dad's analog camera. The old kind, you had to wind with your thumb. He liked taking weird pictures, abandoned barns, fog, old road signs. Halloween rolled around and we wanted to do something different. Josh said, "Let's go ghost hunting." Mia laughed. I remember she said, "Ghosts aren't real, but people are. That's scarier." Josh told us about an old ranger building deep in the woods burned in the 70s, never rebuilt. Hunters said it smelled like something still lived out there. There were stories about Bigfoot sightings all around that ridge. We thought it'd be funny to film a fake documentary, record ourselves being scared. That's what got us into the car. That's what got us up that mountain road with flashlights, an old camera, and way too much confidence. The deeper we went, the fewer lights there were. It wasn't just dark, it was layered. Fog hugged the ground and rolled through the trees like smoke. The headlights caught eyes sometimes. Deer, probably. Maybe not. Tyler's muffler scraped against the gravel and threw sparks. We parked where the road ended, a small pull-off overgrown with weeds. The forest beyond looked alive, like it was breathing fog. Mia hesitated. "This is stupid," she said. Josh smiled, said, "That's why it's perfect." We hiked in single file, flashlights sweeping ahead. At first, it was kind of exciting. Like we were in one of those amateur ghost tapes. We laughed too loud to keep the fear small. But then the woods quieted, no crickets, no wind. The silence pressed against us. That's when the smell hit. Wet fur and something sour like meat left in a cooler too long. Josh muttered, "Probably a dead deer." Tyler didn't answer. He was messing with the camera. The flash had started sticking. We reached a fence that looked like it had been pushed down years ago. Beyond it, dark trees, then the outline of the building. It looked like something the forest had half swallowed. The door was barely hanging. I remember the sound when it scraped open, wood grinding against concrete. Inside was colder. Our lights hit peeling paint, old furniture, animal droppings, graffiti from decades of bored teenagers. But it didn't feel empty. The air was thick, like someone had just walked through it. Tyler took a photo of the hallway, the flash exploding against the fog inside. For a second, everything was white, then dark again. I remember him saying, "That flash didn't bounce right. Something's in here." We laughed, but it didn't sound real. There was a long hallway with rooms on either side. Some had doors, some didn't. I don't know what made us go deeper, maybe stubbornness. We were halfway down when Mia froze. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. At first I thought it was dripping water. Then I realized there was steps, slow, deliberate, outside the building, heavy. They stopped when we stopped. We turned off our lights. Everything went black. For a second, I thought the darkness had a pulse. Then something hit the wall outside hard enough that dust fell from the ceiling. Josh whispered, "Bear." but bears don't throw things. And this sounded like something testing the walls, like it wanted to know how thick they were. We backed into a room that looked like a storage space. The floor was covered in old blankets, sticks, pieces of torn fabric like a nest. The smell was unbearable. Mia gagged, pulled her sleeve over her nose. Tyler whispered, "Take a picture. Quick." He raised the camera, flash went off. For half a second we saw everything clear. Bedding made from what looked like animal fur, scraps of a torn jacket, bones. Not clean white ones, fresh with bits still clinging. That flash must have drawn attention. From outside we heard a low sound, deep, guttural, too heavy to be human. It wasn't a growl. It was like someone exhaling through their whole body. Tyler whispered that we should get photos through the windows, proof that something was out there. He moved down the hall to the far room where the glass was still intact. I followed. Josh and Mia stayed near the door, whispering about leaving. I'll never forget the sound that came next, 3 heavy thuds against the outer wall. Then silence. Tyler raised the camera again. He clicked. The flash went off, lighting the trees outside. He lowered it, staring. I said, "What?" He didn't answer, just wound the film and took another shot. Then he turned to me and said very quietly, "Something's moving out there." We took 3 photos in total. Each time the flash went off, I could see outlines through the fog. The first time, just a shadow between the trees. The second, something closer, the shape clearer. The third time, I remember Tyler's hand shaking so bad the strap slapped against the lens. We didn't look outside again. It started moving around the building. We heard branches cracking, leaves crunching under weight. Slow at first, then faster. Circling. Josh yelled, "Go!" and we ran. The hall seemed longer than before. Every board creaked under us. When we hit the doorway, the smell outside hit harder, like whatever it was had been right there. The fog had thickened so much you couldn't see the tree line. Tyler tripped on the porch steps, the camera slamming into the wood. He grabbed it, clutching it like it was a life vest. Behind us, something hit the doorframe. Not a full-body slam, just a shove, testing it. The sound was deep and wet, like breath pushed through a throat not made for words. We ran down the path toward the car. Branches tore at our jackets. I could hear Mia crying, Josh yelling her name. Every few seconds, behind us, there was movement, heavy, steady, keeping pace but never showing itself. When we broke through to the road, we piled into the car. Tyler dropped the camera on the seat, hands shaking too much to get the keys in. The headlights caught nothing, just trees and fog. Then, somewhere in that fog, 2 sounds, knock, knock, wood on wood, like someone tapping a branch against a tree. We didn't talk the whole drive back. The next morning, nobody wanted to look at the photos. Tyler said he needed to develop them first, make sure they weren't ruined. When he finally did, a few days later, he came over pale as paper. He handed me 3 prints and said, "You tell me what that is." I looked, and I still don't have an answer. We didn't show them around. We didn't want to be those kids who cried Bigfoot, but we all stopped hanging out after that. Josh joined the military the next year. Mia moved to Knoxville and never came back for holidays. Tyler, he kept the negatives for a while, but after his house flooded, he swore he lost them. I only have a copy of one left, tucked in a shoebox. I tried once to tell my dad what happened. He just said, "Those woods keep their own stories." For a while, I told myself it was a prank. Maybe someone knew we were coming. Maybe they planted the smell, made noises. Maybe what we saw was a hunter in heavy gear, or a reflection. But the smell, that smell, doesn't come from a person. And nothing human moves that quiet after something that big hits a wall. Sometimes I think about going back, just to see it in daylight, to prove to myself it was just a building. But part of me believes if I do, I'll find it gone. Or worse, find it exactly the same, untouched, waiting. Every Halloween since then I get this feeling, like the fog outside thickens a little more, like the woods lean in closer. The Smokies are full of ridges and hollows no one's touched in 50 years. Old mines, old houses, old graves. The idea that something else is out there, something that doesn't want to be found, that's not hard to believe anymore. That night took something from each of us. For me, it was certainty. For Tyler, I think it was curiosity. For Mia, it was sleep. We were just kids looking for a story to tell, and we found one that won't ever end. I used to joke that whatever was in that building let us go. Now I think it never even noticed us. We were just trespassers passing through its house. I'm Jimmy, 34. I do electrical work, new panels, outlets, rental repairs. Nothing glamorous. I hike so I don't turn weird from being indoors all week. I bought a drone because my nephew is into editing and kept asking for footage to practice on. I'm decent with it. Nothing fancy, just steady. I wasn't alone that day. Eddie and Ray came. We'd been friends since high school. The kind where you can finish each other's sentences or not talk at all and it's fine. We used to camp every other weekend. Then we got married, took extra shifts, started missing each other's birthdays. You know how it goes. We picked a Saturday in early November to fix that. Gray sky, no snow yet. Damp leaves, a smell like wet bark and someone burning brush far off. We parked at a gravel pull-off and took the old logging road up toward Pine Lick Ridge. It's not a big mountain. It's just a long back with a hollow on one side where the laurel grows thick and the light feels later than it is. The kind of woods where your own footsteps become the whole soundtrack. Eddie joked about his knee. Ray called him soft and then slowed down anyway. 15 minutes in, we saw a ring of stones just off the trail, like a fire pit. But the middle was clean. No ash, no charcoal. Just damp leaves scooped away and pressed flat. Ray poked it with a stick and said, "Guess somebody never struck a match." We kept going. There were little off things. Sticks pushed into the ground at angles near two trees, not like kids playing. No birds for long stretches. Eddie said he smelled a wet dog. I told him it was probably us. He sniffed and said no, worse, and laughed a little too loud. We reached the overlook, just a lip of dirt and rock where the ridge drops into the hollow. Across from us was the opposite slope, all hardwoods and pine. Down below, laurel thickets like green islands. The sky was that flat slate that kills your depth perception. I put the drone on the ground, unfolded the arms, checked the props. The controller connected, the screen showed treetops cutting up into gray. I took it straight out, then up. The motor whine went thin, and then the woods swallowed it. I did a slow pan. The picture jittered once, normal, and settled. The wind nudged the drone, so I trimmed it. I talked to myself under my breath like I always do. Okay, easy. Little left, hold. I almost pulled back for a lower run when something moved on the screen. Not a deer bounding, not a person upright. Dark, big, crouched low on both legs with its back rounded, swaying like it was breathing or concentrating. My brain grabbed the nearest explanation. Guy in a dark coat, hunched over a small fire. I nudged the zoom. The image softened a little, still clear enough. No coat. Black hair. Matte, not shiny, long. The arms were too thick for the rest of the body if it was a person. Both hands went down into the dirt together. Came up together, went down again. The ground in front of it was a patch of turned earth, maybe the size of a small table. No smoke. No steam. Just smooth, dark soil. "What is that?" I said. It came out flat. Ray leaned into my shoulder to see. Eddie said, "Bear?" He said it twice. It wasn't a bear. Bears don't set their legs like that or use their hands that way. You can argue with me if you want. I've seen bears. This wasn't that. I brought the drone lower, careful of branches. The figure kept working. Slow. Deliberate. Like somebody covering a campfire to hide it, but there wasn't any fire. I realized I hadn't hit record. I know. I hit it and the red timer started. I could see the time counting up like a fuse. About 6 seconds in, it stopped. The head lifted a little, like it caught a scent. The hands held still where they were, one on the ground, the other half buried. It turned its face partway toward the drone. I saw cheek and brow under the hair, skin dark where the hair thinned. The eye was deep under the ridge, not reflecting light, just there. It didn't flinch. It registered us. That's what it felt like. Not scared. Aware. My hands shook. The drone drifted. A line of static rolled across the bottom of the screen. The controller beeped once. Battery was fine. The signal read strong. I overcorrected with my thumb, clipped a branch. The picture jumped leaves, bark, sky, and then it went white and then black. I heard the motor spin down somewhere below us, like a toy that's been dropped. "Nice flying," Eddie said, laughing like he had to push the air out of his lungs. Ray didn't say anything. He was looking down the deer path into the hollow. I picked up the controller. The last GPS ping put the drone left of the overlook, near the bottom where the laurel thickens. We went down. The deer path is steep and slick when the leaves are wet. You grab laurel branches so you don't slide. Halfway down I smelled something under the leaf mold. Not rot, not skunk, like burned hair, faint, enough to make your nose wrinkle. Ray said, "You smell that?" And Eddie said, "Yeah," and then kept talking nonsense so he didn't have to say anything else. The drone was lying in a tangle of twigs. One propeller snapped, camera tilted down. Its little red light blinked like everything was fine. I slipped it under my arm. 10 steps beyond, the ground opened into a flat shelf before the ridge dropped again. And there it was, a patch of turned earth, darker than the leaf litter around it, smoothed on top like someone had used both hands to make it neat. To the right, on a thick root, lay the clothes. Red flannel, black jeans. Folded. Not crisp like a closet, but folded. Damp. No socks. No shoes. No jacket. The belt was looped through one hole. No belt. I didn't touch them at first. I took a picture because that's what you do now when your brain stalls. Ray said, "We're leaving." No wobble in his voice, just a decision. Eddie said, "Small. What if someone needs help?" He looked around like a face might be watching us from the laurel. There wasn't one. I moved closer to the smooth dirt. It wasn't a hole. It was filled and padded flat. No rocks in the surface. No sticks. Like somebody cared about the top looking clean. The smell of burned hair was a little stronger. Not like a fire. More like a shirt sleeve run through a flame and snuffed. I picked up the flannel. It was cold and heavy with water. Something stiff in one pocket, maybe a tag or a receipt. I didn't dig. I can't tell you why. Fear of a needle. Fear of a tooth. Fear of knowing. I set it back the way it was. It felt wrong to disturb it more. I can hear you judging that. I judge it too. We backed out. No running. Just that careful fast walk where you try not to slip. The laurel branches tapped our jackets. The woods held their breath. Halfway up the path, Eddie said, "Don't run," even though none of us were. On the overlook, we stood in a little triangle and stared at our boots. I called the ranger station. No answer. I called 911. I kept it simple. We found clothing near disturbed soil. We have drone footage of a figure. Pine Lick Ridge, by the old logging road. They told us to stay put. We waited 40 minutes. I don't remember us talking much. The gray light dimmed a notch. My hands itched. I kept wiping them on my jeans like I'd touched something greasy. 2 rangers came and a county deputy. Polite, steady faces. One ranger watched the 10 seconds on my controller. He asked me to play it again. The deputy looked at the clothes and then at the dirt, crouched, touched the edge of the smooth soil with his gloved knuckles. He didn't dig. Nobody did. The ranger said, "We'll need the card." I said I'd like a copy. He said they'd make me one. On the walk down, the ranger said, "This is an area with an open missing person case." He said a name I'd seen stapled to a corkboard at the gas station. Local man. Middle-aged. Last seen walking the ridge 2 months ago. Search teams, dogs, nothing. At the spot, the deputy lifted the red flannel like it might tear. He checked the jeans pockets gently, like you would if you were trying not to wake someone. He didn't find anything, or if he did, he didn't show us. He said, "Thanks for calling." The ranger took our names and numbers. He used words like subject and area of interest. He told us the clothing matched the missing person's description. He didn't say body. He didn't say remains. He said, "We appreciate your help," and meant it, and also didn't want us there. They kept us on the overlook while more people showed up. Another ranger, a K9 unit, some folks in plain jackets with radios. The dog didn't seem excited. It sniffed and sat. The ranger asked if I had any other copies of the footage. I said no. He asked if we touched the soil. I said no. He wrote it all down and didn't look surprised. I went home with the drone in my back seat like a kid I'd picked up from the nurse's office. I told my wife the short version. She went quiet the way people go, quiet when they're trying to be logical. After dinner, she said, "It's good you called." I heard everything she didn't add. The copy of the video they sent later had a hiccup right where the figure looks up. One frame jumps. The movement is still there, the hands in the dirt, the pause. But that eye into the lens is softer now, like the truth went out of focus by a hair. Maybe I'm imagining it. Maybe they used a different Kodak. I don't know. It doesn't matter. I can see it fine in my head. For a couple weeks, the phone rang. A detective asked me the same list in different orders. Did we see anyone else? Did we disturb the ground? Had we been drinking? Did I know how to edit video? He was respectful. He was also trying to catch me in a hinge where a lie would squeak. There wasn't one. A ranger called once to say, the clothing matches. He didn't say, belongs to. After that, silence. People think the horror is in the 10 seconds. It's not. It's in the quiet after. It's in the way your own house sounds too still. It's in the moment you freeze because a crow calls, and you wait for the woods to go padded the way they did before the drone fell. It's in small stupid stuff, my left hand shaking when I plug in a GFCI, stopping at the gas station and staring at the empty corkboard where the missing flyer used to be until the cashier asks if I'm okay. And he wanted to go back. He said it would help to see nothing there, to prove it to ourselves. Ray said no. He said it fast, like the word burned. I didn't vote. I could see both endings and didn't want either. If we found nothing, we'd start telling ourselves we made it bigger. If we found more, well, I don't need more. I still walk through the chain of how could it be anything else at 3 in the morning, staring at the kitchen counter. A prank? In November, in the middle of a laurel pocket, was someone strong enough to crouch that long, move that quiet, and fold clothes like it mattered? A bear with mange? A hunter in a ghillie suit? I try each one on. None of them wear right. It wasn't biology that scared me. It was the behavior, slow, careful, like a job someone had learned and repeated. That's the part that sits in your chest. If you want me to say the word, Bigfoot, that's what I think we filmed. I don't picture a cartoon. I picture what I saw. Black hair wet from the air, shoulders like a guy who lifts lumber for a living, head forward, hands working the ground. Not frantic, just steady. When it looked up, there wasn't shock. There was a kind of stillness you see in a person who hears their name in a crowd and freezes just enough to listen. I know how that sounds. I don't care anymore. There are details that stick, and I can't shake them. The squeak of my glove on the controller, Ray tapping his wedding ring against a rock without noticing, the damp weight of the flannel when I lifted it, the sweet burned smell by the soil like singed hair or melted synthetic, the way my lungs went small, the way my foot wanted to scuff the dirt open and another part of me said, don't. That last part especially. I don't like admitting it, but I think if I'd kicked through that smooth top, I wouldn't be here telling you this. I can't prove that. It's just a feeling that settled in my bones. A guy at the bar asked to see the clip. Word gets around. I told him I didn't have it, which is almost true. He said, good. That stuff brings bad luck. He said it like he was telling me how often to change a filter. People around here don't say the name. They say the old thing up the hollow. Maybe that's superstition, maybe it's a truce. One more piece. When the ranger called to confirm they'd logged the clothes, he said, thanks for helping return these. Not find, not recover, return. It landed weird. Return to who? To a family, sure, or to something else. I know that's overthinking a word. I also know there are words you choose when you don't want to say the other ones. I haven't flown the drone much since. You want a neat end. I don't have one. The missing man's body wasn't found, not that I ever heard. The case didn't explode on the news. People talked for a week and then a barn burned in the next county and the talk moved.